Welcome to From Within She Rises, a space where healing isn't something we chase, but something we return to. Here we explore what it means to heal your gut, your hormones, and your nervous system from the inside out through embodiment, human design, and functional nutrition that honors the truth in your cells. This podcast is for the woman who's done outsourcing her power, done trying to fix what was never broken, and ready to rise on her terms, in her timing, from within. Let's drop in. Inhale deeply through the nose and exhale through the mouth and whisper to yourself, I am not broken. Again, slower. I am not broken. Let your body hear it. Let your cells remember. This is your reclamation. I am Jessie K, and this is podcast episode number 1. You know, I wasn't supposed to rise. I was supposed to stay small, grateful, and quiet. I was supposed to nod along, smile, eat less, want to be less, want to take up less space, want less. But here's the thing that no one tells you. You can only abandon yourself for so long before your body starts to speak louder than your shame. And for me, it looked like bloating that made me fear food, hormones that made me feel insane, exhaustion, sleep couldn't even touch, and a nervous system that was literally just stuck in survival mode 24/7. Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great to be me for a little time there. But underneath all of those symptoms was a story of a girl taught to shrink, a woman taught to overperform, a healer who knew there had to be another way. Um, and to be honest, my turning point didn't come with a diagnosis because I did get a diagnosis and I didn't feel better. And for those of you who don't know, my diagnosis was actually endometriosis. And at the time, I was living an interesting life. Let's leave it at that. I was in a relationship that would probably be called toxic. I had a nervous system that was constantly dysregulated, and my endometriosis was bad. I was 23 when I found out, and I didn't go looking for answers. I got stuck in the, hey, okay, this is my life, this is normal. I'm supposed to feel like shit all the time. Now I know how to have endometriosis. And at the time I wasn't open to looking for other answers. So when doctors said, oh, well, it might go when you have kids, and here, let's put you on this basically menopause causing shot. I was like, okay, cool. I did what I did, and it didn't, my turning point was not the diagnosis. I can tell you that with absolute certainty. The diagnosis was just me coming up with more validation that it was okay to feel like shit 24/7 and stay a victim. My turning point actually came the day that I finally stopped making myself feel wrong for being sensitive, for feeling too much, or not fitting into a certain mold. It came when I realized that I am not a problem to fix, but I am a woman to come home to. And so I started rebuilding my health on my own. Um, but more importantly, I started rebuilding my voice. I got out of the toxic relationship. I started listening to my gut, which is what led me to that. I started listening to that intuition, that inner voice that, spoiler alert, I am a sacral being, a manifesting generator, who should have been listening to her gut this whole time. I started saying no when it was meant to say no. If it wasn't a hell yes, it was forever a no after that point. I started studying functional nutrition and human design and nervous system and neuroscience. And I started leaning into my design because I'd listened to my gut. I'm here to give you the tools I wish I had that would have expedited this process. Because as a 5/1, like learning and living and embodying this is what I'm meant to do. And It took me a really long time to fall into place because I didn't have the tools to teach me how to get there faster. I started moving with God, not just the hustle. And, as a recovering, they say recovering Catholic, who just felt so disconnected from the fact that there was like so many rules involved in it. And, you tick off all these boxes and you're good to go, but it doesn't embody the values. It just gives you all these rules. And then does it really matter if you're embodying them? So I would say I was a bit of a recovering Catholic in that sense. And I think that's a wound that a lot of us who grew up in that strict religious background probably have. And it may not just be around Catholicism, it could be about another religion. Um, but when I started realizing that the connection was actually between me and God, and that God was actually like giving me those signs in my gut, like it's a connection between yourself that ties you to God. It's the embodiment that allows you to see the signs and opportunities that He puts right in front of you. And so it really was an honoring and healing of that spiritual sacred wound. And I also started remembering that my healing, like, it wasn't just for me, it was for and I think this might be why it really took having a daughter. Thank you, Emery, my first baby girl. And now I have freaking three daughters, one son. And so it took having a daughter to realize that I didn't want her to feel like this anymore, that I was actually healing not only for myself, for my daughter, and for every woman who has never got a chance to speak her truth. And so that was really what it what initiated and what changed my life from somebody who felt like a victim, got a diagnosis that, you know, ticked off the boxes and allowed me to stay stuck in that, I guess, that label. And then the story that like pulled me out of it, it was embodiment. And Lord, if I had only had somebody put those pieces in front of me at the time. I've really come to a lot of awakenings this past week. As I record this, it is April 22nd, 2025, and I have every intention of, if technology works with me, posting it this week. And I've had a lot of awakenings over the last 2 weeks, a lot of realizations that, we were given so many of the perfect diets, and somebody says you have to eat these macros or eat these things or do this or do that, and this is going to heal your gut and this is going to do that. And, my big realization, even having had already planned out this podcast and this huge shift in my life and like my really stepping up to my mission and my embodiment of a loud warrior woman. It really is that, you have to, it's a bit of softness and it's a bit of fierce warrior priestess. And you have to learn to start embodying and being present. But also, it's that sense of healing as well, where you meet yourself, the woman that is holding so much stored in her body that her body's screaming for help. You meet that woman where she's at, and you do all of the logical things. And this is why this podcast is about the science of sovereignty, because you meet that woman, that sovereign, incredible priestess that you are going to learn to embody through these podcasts and alongside me. And you meet her where she is at now, and you learn to support her through things like functional nutrition. You support the healing while you do the hard work, which is really upping your frequency and embodying the woman that you want to be. And so I can't wait for this, but this space from within she rises. It's not about perfection. It's about being the most regulated, it's not about being the most regulated or the most spiritual or the most correct. I just hiccuped there on that sentence. So it's definitely not about being perfect. And isn't that just beautiful? I will say, as we're talking about the human design, my throat is connected to the spleen. And so that is the only center that's connected to my throat. You will notice that while I have amazing notes and plans podcast episodes, I will go off on tangents because I speak. I'm just like a vessel at times, and I let what's ready to come out come out. So I hope you're ready for a wild ride. Let me tell you. But anyways, this podcast is really about honoring the woman you are. When you're no longer apologizing for your body, your truth, and your voice. It's about rising, not in rebellion to other people, which I think is a lot of times, the Catholic wound for me was definitely one of those things, but it's in devotion to what's real, to what's God given or universe given, if that's what you so choose to believe, to what's always been inside you. So we'll be here to talk about healing your gut because it is science based. So we will also talk about how to support your gut now, and what's holding your voice hostage there, regulating your nervous system that's still scanning for betrayal, balancing the hormones that once felt like sabotage. I can feel that as somebody with endo. I was definitely felt like I was constantly being sabotaged, but I also, once I got that diagnosis, I then felt like it was just what I was meant to be. I was just meant to feel like absolute shit for the rest of my life. But I sit here asymptomatic. I do have my occasional flare up. I just had one a couple months ago, and maybe that's a story for another podcast. But I live very asymptomatically 99% of the time. So I'm here to tell you, you really don't have to be you don't have to be held hostage. This is about reclaiming your voice as your sacred instrument and doing it all with God and not just grit, with the universe, with the energy. And so, yeah, if this landed, if you feel your voice is stirring, your body is softening, your power is rising, then this podcast, it was made for you. So subscribe, share with a sister who's ready to rise with you. And join me next week for episode 2, where we're going to be diving into the body as a portal of power, not a project to fix. So let's close this together. You are not alone. You are not broken. And from within, you are already rising.